Hello and welcome to another Citadel High podcast. It's been a while. However, me and Gemma are here to entertain you on a Saturday night. Hopefully, we're entertaining. I'm not sure because we're the most unprofessional podcast on YouTube in the Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones community. But I'm really happy to be here with Gemma, and we're really excited to talk about Fire and Blood Chapter 3, even though it's a pretty short chapter. Gemma, what's up?
How is it that our USP became being the most unprofessional podcast? Hi, everybody in the chat. Thanks for having me on again, Kyle. Yeah, it's been a while. It's a very busy time of year, as you know, and I'm just juggling so many plates at the moment. No, you spin plates. You go on, Kyle. I'm just waffling
now. What we're going to do today is basically we're not going to go like chronologically discussing the chapter. What we're going to do is we're going to riff back and forth, and me and Gemma are going to kind of talk about the symbolisms that we picked up on, foreshadowings and stuff like that. We're kind of just going to discuss the stuff we picked up from the chapter. Me and Gemma chatted, of course, about the chapter, and we both have a little different views on it, as most people do when they're interpreting a massive book such as this one. So what we'll do is we'll kind of get into it. Gemma, what were your overall thoughts of the chapter?
Like you said, it was a short chapter. It's not one that's full of action, particularly. It doesn't list a bunch of wars or civil wars or family arguments, not really. Towards the end, there might be a little hint of that. It seems to be a segue between chapters 1 and 2 and chapters 4, which becomes very, very intriguing. But there's certainly so much that we can take from this chapter. What's the chapter actually called? Three Heads Had the Dragon, Governance under King Aegon the First.
Was he really a governor or a dictator? We're going to talk about that in a second. We had a couple of donations. We had one pre-stream from Maura Lee saying that she hype and love Kyle and everyone in the chat. She said she loved the new God's Eye video. Super happy that you liked it, Maura. I know we talk about the God's Eye a lot, so really happy that you enjoyed it. And of course, Sword in the Darkness. Have to miss the stream tonight. Have a family thing, but I'll watch later. Just wanted to show you some love and have a great weekend. So, wow, thanks, guys. $55 donated pre-stream. You guys are insane. But we really, really appreciate it. And yeah, people in the chat: Rick Hoppy, Urtach Altanaz, Forrest Lawrence Corner, Scott McCloy, Mom Olga, Robar Baratheon, and plenty other awesome people. But yeah, the overall tone of the chapter for me, Gemma, and just the tone of Aegon the Conqueror. Of course, I'm looking at him completely differently now. The Iron Throne was built on this idea of conquest, and really the Iron Throne represents the power over the people. I don't like Aegon the Conqueror that much. I just don't.
I'd just like to address Lauren's comment. Hi, Lauren. She says, whatever Gemma is wearing, I dig it. I am such a bar humbug. Anybody that knows me will know that, most people fall into one of two camps when it comes to Christmas. And I am most definitely in the bar humbug camp. But this is a Christmas jumper. It's an actual Christmas tree jumper. It's got bells on it. It's got a hood with a star. It's horrendous, but it's super snuggly and warm.
Speaking on that, actually, before Gemma goes ham, as she usually does, we're going to be doing a Joy to the Realm stream. We haven't decided exactly what day it is, but we're going to have like ugly Christmas sweaters and stuff like that. We'll have like snacks and, it'll be a shenanigans panel. Let's just say that.
Yeah, that sounds like fun. Okay, Aegon the Conqueror. Okay. Let me just go off for a moment here.
Yeah.
This chapter in particular is very revealing for Aegon and the purpose of his conquest, or the propaganda of his conquest. I hate the phrase fake news. I really do. But I was reading this chapter and I just thought this maester is so pro-Targaryen. It's almost hilarious. This is blatant propaganda. And actually, we have 4 chapters in Fire and Blood that feature Aegon the Conqueror, and we still don't know this guy. We literally still don't know who Aegon the Conqueror is. We know what he did. We know a lot more about what he did. This chapter in particular, we know that he held court in random fields to listen to the complaints and the needs of the small folk. I mean, the propaganda in this chapter, it's and this lends itself to this mythicized character. What we need to remember is that Aegon's story, it was, as history always is, it was written by the winners. So we know that he issued decrees. We know that he regularized customs and duties and taxes. We know that he prayed to the faith, although the text repeatedly tells us that he was not a pious or godly man. But we can get into that a little bit later. We know that he expanded the Red Keep. We know that he overviewed the economic development of King's Landing. None of this is telling us anything about him and who he was, what he stood for, what he represented. And it creates this enigmatic conqueror, warrior guy. I'll get into a little bit more later about the fake news aspect of Fire and Blood. Gildane clearly had a bit of a hard-on for Aegon, but didn't know who he was. So
it's interesting because, like, we learn a lot about Visenya and Rhaenys, right?
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
And it's not really the case about Aegon. He remains an enigma, I guess we could say. But there's still a few things that are pretty clear about him, Gemma. Like, the feeling that I got was he wasn't as good of a person, like you said, that everybody perceived him to be like some sort of savior of Westeros, Maester Gildane definitely framed it in a more positive light than what was actually going on.
Yeah, it was the same in the World of Ice and Fire, and we all spoke about this at the time. Most of us content creators have absolutely dissected the World of Ice and Fire, but that was written. The Maester started writing it Yandel while King Robert was on the throne, but he didn't complete it until Tommen was on the throne, because obviously that all happened rather rapidly, and the bias towards not necessarily the Baratheon house, but the Lannister house is abundantly clear. And I think it's quite obvious that, the Lannisters are the ruling house of the time. They're not going to allow such a book to be freely distributed across the realm if it painted them in a bad light.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting that, especially the Lannisters, because, they end up coming into power because Cersei is married to Robert, and Tywin obviously had a huge impact on the realm. We could think of him as basically he was the most competent person when Mad King Aerys was around sitting on the throne. So there's some interesting parallels that go back to this chapter. Gemma, what was your thoughts on kind of Aegon holding all of these different courts? What did you take from that?
I just think it's a masterpiece in spin. To be quite frank, I really do. Call me a skeptic, but I'm not really buying it. It's like the things that Aegon did, and I think this is one of the reasons why I've seen a few people theorize that, and I mentioned this in my last chapter breakdown, chapter 2, that Aegon had a more noble reason for conquering Westeros, in that he somehow knew about the Long Night or the others and that kind of thing. Some people have even proposed that there's evidence of this in Fire and Blood. I haven't found any. George R. R. Martin, in an interview or like in a little short video that he did to promote Fire and Blood, said something rather tasty regarding that. Like I said, if you've seen my chapter 2 breakdown, I addressed that there anyway.
Do you think that the Kingsguard is the reason why people think of this? Because the Kingsguard can be likened to the Night's Watch, Is that why you think people are theorizing this way, Gemma?
I think it's because they're buying into the mythos of Aegon the Conqueror and not quite remembering that this is a book that's not necessarily canon. This is a book written by a maester who had a very particular political point of view, who had bias and his own interests to pursue whilst writing that text. Just like real world historical accounts, they again, it's written by the winners, isn't it? I mean, let's face it, Westeros, when Aegon was crowned unnecessarily for the second time at Old Town, even though he'd already been crowned, Westeros quite literally, according to this text, rejoiced the crowning of this man from a foreign realm that shunned the laws laid out by the dominant religion that was crowning him, i.e. he married his sister wives. He'd literally just baked Harrenhal and its inhabitants and then burned alive thousands of countrymen in the field of fire, and everyone was, woohoo, Aegon, he's the man, you know. But the gods were on his side. The gods were on his side. This is a masterpiece in spin, right?
Yeah, I mean, because of the symbolism of fire, because of the power of the dragons, it made a very, very, very large impact on how people perceived how he actually was. But he wasn't. It's like, did he care that? Did he genuinely care that much about being king?
I think he wanted the power and the glory, and he had the means and the opportunity to do so.
So he was more like Robert Baratheon then.
Well, I don't think he was doing it for the love of a woman, but
yeah, but you know, Robert, you know, abused his power. Obviously, you know what I mean. He wasn't a good king.
I just think I mean, if you take out the poetic language that's being used to describe this conquest in the words of Gildayn, essentially what we've got is this warning to those that would defy House Targaryen in the future. This was a clear lesson. The lesson was be smart. Aegon's conquering Westeros, be smart, bend the knee, submit, and live. Actually, they didn't have a choice because the alternative was death. So, but he's good with the gods. He's good with the gods.
Aegon's Iron Throne was made with fire, steel, and here's the last word, terror.
This was always a Game of Thrones from the very beginning.
Yeah, you know, I dropped my God's Eye video earlier today, and I spoke about how Daenerys talks about breaking the wheel and what a circle actually represents. A circle doesn't branch out. It repeats unto itself. It doesn't branch out into different areas. This is what Aegon essentially installed in King's Landing. The Iron Throne represents the power over the people. It will just continue like Daenerys talks about. So I find it so interesting when we learn about Aegon Targaryen and what he has accomplished and what Dany actually believes about the Targaryens. Like you're saying, it is kind of propaganda because it's not this dream that everyone has about this great fucking kingdom, you know? Pardon my language.
I think what George R.R. Martin is doing, meta-ly, that's not a word, but you know what I mean, in a meta manner, he's constantly reminding us and laying clues. This book is not a novel. This book is designed, as I said, to mimic real world historical books. It's written from a point of view, just like the main series is, with unreliable narrators and people that don't know all the circumstances or are making judgments and decisions based on false or incomplete information. It's written by the winners in the interests of those who wish to stay in favor with the ruling elite of Westeros, and it's deliberately biased. And George R.R. Martin is kind of telling us through this that we've got to be critical when we interpret this information and be very wary of Archmaester Gildayn's accounts.
Listen to this. Oh, this is just apart from the chapter, but none doubted Aegon Targaryen was the final authority in all matters relating to governance to the realm, and his sisters Visenya and Rhaenys remained his partners in power throughout the realm, save perhaps for good Queen Alysanne. It was the king's custom to bring one of his queens with him wherever he traveled, whilst the other remained at Dragonstone or King's Landing, oft not as seated on the Iron Throne, ruling on whatever matters came before her. So it's like like Iron Fist. You get this. I don't know. I got this Iron Fist symbolism.
It's propaganda. I mean, just go back and look at the language of that. It's gushing. I don't have any other examples right now from the text, but there are chunks, there are huge paragraphs of just gush. Aegon was the best. Aegon was awesome. Aegon thought of the people. Aegon cared. You know, he did all these things to honor the faith of the Seven. He built 7 gates in the wall that surrounded King's Landing. He didn't burn down Old Town and the Starry Sept. That was nice of him, wasn't it? And the High Septon.
Yeah, thank you for not burning us alive.
Exactly. And the High Septon had a vision from the crone. I think that's utter fake news. I think the High Septon was just astute enough to realize that if they didn't open the gates, they were going to burn. So he came up with this narrative, and the text says that Aegon did all these things to honor the faith of the Seven, which is the dominant religion in Westeros. He didn't honor the faith of the Seven. He married his sister wives, which is like a big no-no for that religion, but it's okay because he's a Targaryen. He's different, but he's not. He's the same. He's like us too. You know, which one is it? I mean, when we get into Jaehaerys, we have this doctrine that he literally forced upon the entire country. That's another chapter. But yeah, I mean, I've got more to say about Visenya, but as far as Aegon news, I'm calling it fake news.
Well, we're going to talk a lot about Visenya. I think Visenya is a much more intriguing character than Aegon Targaryen. Just putting that out there. Let's get Chad a little bit involved here, Gemma.
Yeah.
Let's see what they think about Aegon Targaryen.
I think they're appreciating my ranting. It's not ranting. It's just I'm really keen to impress this upon people that this is where, you know, and I'm not the first person that's read Fire and Blood that said this, not by a long stretch.
By the way, this is total fake news. Aegon is not Azor Ahai. I know some people were talking about it. Aegon said he loved the scent of Dragonstone, where the salt air smelled of smoke and brimstone. George is totally trolling us here. Just people. Aegon is not Azor Ahai. Let me just throw that out.
Do you know what? Turbo in the chat has just nailed it. Aegon was as good as they said he was. If we just change one word, Aegon was as good as he said he was.
All right. Turbo, thank you for that. Preach Kyle, Aegon wasn't interesting, says Scott McCloy. And somebody told me that Queen Alysanne wasn't interesting, and I'm like, yeah, you're crazy. Aegon.
Again, this Jaehaerys and Alysanne, everyone's like, oh, they're so awesome. Oh, I ship them. Oh,
I just
propaganda.
Oh, Gemma, I like them. They're different than Aegon.
Of course you do. The text is written in a way that lends itself to make the reader like these monarchs. That's the point. Come on. Don't be so naive.
That's not me calling Gemma an ambulance. That's me calling myself one. I would buy him a beer, says Cortez. I don't think he was a bad king or person, but no man is that infallible. Matthew Lee. Ding, 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 ding. Mandolin. History was...
Gemma is bringing the salty true. Thank you, Robot.
Aegon sounds like Jon Snow with Valyrian features. Michael Smith, you take that back. Yeah, Robar Baratheon is one of my favorite people of all time. All the women were so great in Fire and Blood. Yeah, the women characters seem to just have more depth to them. Kind of interesting, huh? But let's read a few more comments. Just like Gemma is more interesting than I am. Bryce is Lorraine. We don't like them. We love them because there's a lot of crazy, so we love them. Are you talking about me and Gemma? Because that is totally fair. Brenda Starr. Aegon didn't burn the followers of the Faith of the Seven or the old gods.
Can I answer to Brenda Starr's comment there?
Yeah.
Aegon didn't burn the followers of the Faith or the Seven or the old gods. This is true. Of course he didn't, because he needed the legitimizing authority of the Faith of the Seven. He wasn't stupid.
Ooh, Piano Diva. Well, yeah, actually, let's just segue into Visenya. Screw Aegon. My theory is if Visenya had bonded with Balerion, there would not be any of this three heads of the dragon stuff. Thoughts?
Visenya. I've got a couple of quotes about Visenya. I actually
She's badass. She's like Kingsguard. Yo, Visenya. Thank you.
Yeah, we do get a new member of the Kingsguard. We get a new character, and let me just flip back because I've got some notes about the Kingsguard. But
you also flipped your hair at the same time. That would just give it even. Flip back.
Okay, Sir Humphrey the Mummer, the Hedge Knight. That we knew this before. We knew his name before, but now we know that he was definitely a Hedge Knight. And I think the fact that Visenya was prepared to accept a Hedge Knight into the Kingsguard, because obviously it was Visenya that was credited with formulating this original lineup. I think it's a testimony. It underlines her drive in creating the Kingsguard and her reason for doing it. Aegon wanted to apparently have a tourney, and then the champions could be the members of the Kingsguard, but Visenya just poo-pooed that idea completely. She didn't want a Kingsguard full of up-jumped and overprivileged young aristocrats or friends or family or just people that had noble friends or what have you, people in the right circles. Basically what she's saying, and the fact she's got a Hedge Knight who are often landless and poor, as we know from the tales of Dunk and Deg.
Yeah.
Basically, she wanted any man, as long as they could prove that they were a capable knight and a man of proven loyalty, any man could earn a white cloak. And I think Sir Humphrey the Mummer's inclusion into the Kingsguard certainly demonstrates that fact for me. So there's a lot of theories about Visenya towards the end and her relationship with Aegon potentially going sour. I've seen some very extreme murder conspiracy theories with Visenya, but I think at least at this point, she was certainly championing Aegon. That may have changed in the later years.
Her views on honor changed, right? You think a little bit?
I think it's clear that something went down because Aegon.
I kind of got like how Brienne views Jaime vibes. I don't know. That's maybe I'm stretching a little bit there, but
she was clearly a warrior. She was a very dark woman. I think as she got older, she perhaps got more bitter. Somebody mentioned in the chat a while ago, I can't remember who it is, I do apologize, but somebody did mention the Aegon was infertile and Maegor and Aenys, neither of them were his children. I agree 100%, and I will talk about that in my chapter breakdowns on my channel. But
that was Robar Baratheon, by the way. He was
on fire today.
No, Robar is not on fire today. He's always on fire when it comes to this.
Always on fire.
Actually, you know what we're doing right now, Gemma? We're knighting Robar Baratheon as the Knight of Fire in the chat.
I think Karts 3Z has got a very valid point there. Visenya, I wonder if Visenya ever got jealous of Rhaenys. Now, there's certainly fuel for that fire, 100%. And I think that could have perhaps actually increased once Rhaenys died, because I don't think she did, but for argument's sake, because Aegon's feelings could have become even clearer if he pulled away from Visenya. It felt as though Visenya had Maegor very late. Maybe Aegon didn't really want to have a child with her. Maybe he didn't. And And as she got older and was perhaps less capable of being a warrior, it was said that she turned to the dark arts and sorcery and all of that. Let me read out one of these quotes. I've got two quotes, one from Fire and Blood and kind of the corresponding one from the World of Ice and Fire. So this is from Fire and Blood. Yet there was darkness in Visenya Targaryen. To most of the world, she presented the grim face of a warrior, stern and unforgiving. Even her beauty had an edge to it, her admirers said. And then the world says, Queen Visenya did not share her sister's love of music and song. She was not without humor, however. No, I've got these the wrong way around. This one's Fire and Blood. For many years, she kept her own fool, her astute hunchback called Lord Monkeyface, whose antics amused her greatly when he choked to death on a peach pit. The queen acquired an ape and dressed it in Lord Monkeyface's clothing. The new one is cleverer, she was wont to say. Yes, that's hilarious, but that's also really dark, right?
The humor
really
in the humor in the peach pit, like Stannis,
yes.
Come on, like there's definitely reference to that there. I was like, George, you bastard, did it again.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, this isn't this chapter, but if we go back to the conquest, when Visenya went to the Vale of Arryn, and she took Lord Ronald Arryn for a ride on the dragon.
Love that.
Yeah, it's a lovely story, isn't it? Isn't it lovely? Wasn't that a lovely, nice, kind thing that the maternal, motherly Visenya Targaryen? No, that was utterly terrifying. And again, it's a master in spin, right? Basically, you've got this situation where Ronald's mother walks out and she finds her young son sat on the knee of this strange woman with a huge, monstrous, fire-breathing beast sat behind her. It says in the text, no threats were exchanged. No, they didn't need to exchange threats.
It was right in front of them.
That was pretty well implied.
Yeah,
okay?
her child was on her knees, like, hey, disagree with me, and we got a snack for my dragon.
And we've got a problem, exactly. And then it's like, I tell you what, while you decide whether you're going to lay down your crown, I'm going to take your son on my fire-breathing monstrous beast for a ride, and let's just hope that he stays on that dragon,
See,
Come on.
Okay, Gemma is a mother. I feel a little bit differently about this because I just want to ride a dragon, but this is just how I feel about it.
And it's been presented as this lovely story about this child going for a ride on a dragon. Oh, it's so lovely. It's not. It's utterly terrifying. What a bitch.
Wow, Gemma, you're crushing me here. I actually thought that was a sweet story. No, actually, she was threatening without saying it. Let's just put
absolutely, yeah, 100%, yeah. Yeah, completely. The threat was most definitely implied.
Okay, people are reasonable in the chat. I'm not a mom, but yeah, Gemma, I agree. Yeah, have you ever listened to our podcast? She's the smarter one out of both of us in life and in book smarts. Damn.
I'm telling you, this book is propaganda. I love it.
I don't even know if I can make it through this podcast. I'm gonna die of laughter. I really am. Gemma, I can't. We have to get through this.
But as far as Visenya being jealous of Rhaenys, which was kind of the launch pad from the chat that we started off on this, where are you, Kyle? I'm gonna shut up and let you.
I don't even know anymore. I wanted to talk about Visenya and the Kingsguard. I thought you could start us off with that, and we can go there. I don't know. The Visenya, dark sister. She was the darker sister. All of these things she was dabbling in, her personality changing over time, I thought was very interesting. Is she the most interesting out of the three of them? I don't. That's debatable. I think so personally. I mean,
she lived the longest.
She's the most likened to Arya, and Arya's like my favorite, probably other than Sandor. So I don't know. It's hard to say because I saw some people in the chat saying Rhaenys was the fun one. I don't know. That's kind of debatable.
That's certainly the way it's been presented, but after reading the first 2 or 3 chapters of this text, I am extremely skeptical of the information that we're receiving now. So I am just questioning every single sentence, which is, I think, what George R. R. Martin wants us to do, and because of that, it's just a billion times even more intriguing because you're trying to kind of get past the bullshit and what's really going on here. Fake Aria says, I think Visenya sounds fun. Visenya Targaryen is the woman that once her husband died, she pretty much dedicated her entire life to ensuring that her insane son would be seated on the Iron Throne, despite the fact he was by no means first in line. She was described as his greatest ally and supporter. She basically brought a tyrant to power. She usurped the throne from her sister's rightful line. She supported Maegor through terror and madness that he exacted not just on the realm, but on his own family. Visenya was the kind of person that was willing to see horror inflicted upon others for the sake of her own legacy. That's the kind of woman Visenya Targaryen was.
Crazy. One thing that we were talking about before the stream, Gemma, that I think that we should mention is Visenya brokered a double wedding between the House Blackwood and House Bracken. And, come on now.
And what was my reply to that?
Dark magic.
I said she must have definitely been dabbling in dark magic if she got Bracken and Blackwood to do anything together.
Let's stir the cauldron. I don't know. That's my impression of a witch, everyone. I just poked myself in the eye.
That's karma for taking the mick out of witches.
Damn, that actually hurt. Okay, so we'll talk about Rhaenys too. Visenya, what was the most interesting thing in this chapter that stood out about Visenya?
In this particular chapter, the thing is, and I explained this to you before we came on live, that this book is not written chronologically. So it's very, I mean, I am doing chapter breakdowns, but I'm finding myself flipping back and forth for context, and for reinforcing the points that I'm making that have arisen in a particular chapter. I think you're probably right, though, in answer to your question. I think the formulating of the Kingsguard was a particular noteworthy moment for Visenya, and the fact that she actually cut Aegon with Dark Sister to prove a point.
Yeah, like assaulted him.
Right? Essentially, yeah.
Slashed his cheek. Very interesting. Big sister, hey, I'm just slashing you. So the people that she chose for the Kingsguard, you talked about Sir Humphrey the Mummer. There was Corlys Valerion, who is the Lord Commander. We have
who is not to be confused with the Sea Snake.
Yeah,
just because that ages and things. Yeah.
Sir Robin Darklyn, Dark Robin, pretty.
I think House Darklyn have had more members in the Kingsguard than any other noble house in Westeros.
That's interesting too. Richard Root, Sir Gregor Good, Sir Griffith Good, and Sir Addison Hill, bastard of Cornfield.
Yes.
Cornfield.
Who eventually rose to become Lord Commander.
Yeah. So pretty interesting mix of people. Some were younger sons, the heirs of ancient houses who gave up their inheritances to serve the king. One was the hedge knight, another born bastard. All of them were quick, strong, observant, skilled with the sword and shield, and devoted to the king. So
yeah, were you a little bit disappointed that we didn't get more backstory for each? I mean, we got their names, we know they're loyal.
Because they described them as being like a pretty good group, like all, you know. And
Yeah, but
I thought that we would get a little bit more on them,
I
but
mean, if Gildane is working from other historical records, surely he would have the white book to go from in that situation. So he could have given us just a little. It's a short chapter. There was room. He could have given us just a sentence or two outlining the deeds and heroic acts of each of these members, assuming they had any.
Did you think that I mean, we didn't get a ton of the backstory, like you said, but do you think they were tied to these 7 words: quick, strong, observant, skilled, sword, a shield, devoted? This tied to the faith of the 7 in any sort of way? Did you
yeah, exactly. It was another way of appeasing the faith, because Aegon needed the legitimacy of the faith of the 7, the dominant religion in Westeros. So he just used every opportunity he could to prove to the realm, I'm one of you guys and I'm ordained by God. So it's all good.
Very interesting that from every corner of the realm these people came from. So and just getting them together, that's like a very circular thing. You know, I talk about circles all the time because I'm weird. But yeah, that's, you know, this idea of bringing everyone together. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And, you know, having to make that pledge to be part of the Kingsguard, to serve King Aegon. Yeah, that is very important. Something that George tries to touch on. Do we want to go a little bit more into Kingsguard, Gemma? Or we want to kind of talk about some like more?
Linda Smith's pointed out in the chat that we do know that 2 of them died defending the king. Yeah, again, we know that, but it just I would have liked a little bit more than just another list of names in this particular chapter. Like I said, the chapter was a short one. We could fit it in. George Turner said, "How's the ancestry coming along?" Don't even go there, George.
Wow. Chat thoughts on the Kingsguard. Let's do that. While me and Gemma kind of queue up our next points here, let's see what the chat has to say about Visenya being an integral part of the forming of the Kingsguard and some of its members. What do we think about that? Chat.
We do have the introduction of some more hands of the king. I'm just flipping through my notes again. I wrote down the list. Orys Baratheon, yes, we knew.
Yeah.
Edmund Tully, we knew that he was Aegon's hand. Fire and Blood explains why he resigned, because his wife died in childbirth.
Alton Celtigar.
He's the newly introduced character. There is his name has never been mentioned anywhere before. And all we know is that he served ably and he died from natural causes, I think it says.
One thing I did find interesting, going back to Orys Baratheon, the king's hand should have had a hand. I will not have a man speaking of the king's stump, you know.
And I love after that it says Orys became known as Orys One Hand thereafter. So it was like obvious, it didn't matter. They took the mick anyway.
Obvious Jaime Lannister parallels.
Yeah,
that's pretty interesting.
Osmond Strong. We got.
Why did Orys Baratheon quit though?
I think he was just salty, and he was on his revenge mission, wasn't he?
Yeah. Think so.
I actually think Orys Baratheon is an absolutely fascinating character.
Love him.
I'm probably going to do a profile for him alone. I will do profiles for many of the characters that are prevalent during Fire and Blood, but I think I'll start with Orys Baratheon because I just thought he was so interesting.
Robot Baratheon killing it again in the chat says she wasn't communicating to the Kingsguard. She struck him not just as a wife, sister, queen. She struck him as a Queensguard, kind of. Yeah, that's an interesting point that you can make, Robot, for sure. She was, you know, trying to display the importance of that. Handless, I think he truly loved his brother and looked up to him, so he didn't even want to harm his brother. And yeah.
And Fake Aria said, I haven't tried to look this up, but do we know who Orys' mother is? No, we don't. It's one of the 5 billion frustrating mysteries of this text.
Don't even bother asking me. Gemma's doing the whole tree ancestry deal. I couldn't even organize something like that.
We literally don't even know where the name Baratheon came from, because it's not a bastard name. We literally have no idea of the origins of that surname.
It's so interesting because we hear about how, you know, Argel Durandon and Oris, you know, they get together, but then, I mean, we don't really know too much. I mean, he took the stag as a symbol of his house and everything, but I don't know. It's kind of interesting. We don't get very much.
Didn't have one of his own.
Well, yeah, I mean, but his Targaryen lineage, it doesn't matter. Baratheons are Targaryen. Meh. Yeah, chat. I was about to ask you about Peagle Pete. Yep. Okay, Amanda Duncan has a question. Do you think that Oris was a father to either Aenys or Maegor? Okay, let's talk about this. Let's go back to Aegon for a minute. Aegon firing blanks. Did Aegon actually have kids?
I don't think he did.
Which is
I
pretty
think
crazy.
From the world of Ice and Fire, there was perhaps a couple of nuggets that made us wonder, specifically about Aenys. But Maegor was never really in question, but Fire and Blood gives us a lot of ammunition to fire this Aegon was firing blanks theory. I have even proposed, and it's not something I necessarily believe in, but it's certainly a consideration. If we take it to the Curse of Harrenhal, one of the theories surrounding the Curse of Harrenhal is that the fire, the black fire from Balerion, the Black Dread, left some kind of fallout that created infertility in people that spent too much time in Harrenhal. And we've seen multiple cases of this in entire noble houses and single characters. So it could be that the riders of Aegon, when he was Maegor and Aegon, the riders of Balerion, ended up infertile because they were exposed to this black flame too much. This is just a slab of tinfoil for you there. This is just me musing out loud. But whether that is the case or not, I think it's quite possible that neither Aenys or Maegor were his children. Whether Oris Baratheon fathered one or not, I'm not sure.
Whoa, Biggie, Maegor did nothing wrong. Oh. Wow, Biggie, let's slow down there, champ. Okay. What do you think about what Biggie has to say, Gemma?
I think there was a reason why he was called the Cruel and not the Kind or the Awesome or the Spectacular, you know?
Ding,
but
ding,
again,
ding, ding,
fake news.
Ding, 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 ding. Thank you. But Biggie, I love you, man. Don't worry. I had to point that out because I was like, I know you're trying to meme. It's good. We're good.
The only person who didn't do anything wrong was Star-Lord.
Gemma, we are gonna get a fight in about this live on air. Don't do this. By the way, everyone, I think this is a perfect opportunity.
Yeah, can I just quickly address what Michael Smith said? Viserys the First was also a rider of Balerion. This is true. He had 7 true-born children and potentially bastards as well. So we couldn't use that argument. But Viserys the First never used Balerion to bathe keeps and fields in black fire because he reigned during a time of peace. There were no wars for him to take Balerion. So riding Balerion and being exposed to the black fire, I think, are 2 separate things, whereas Maegor and Aegon were very much exposed to the black fire. Again, it's complete tinfoil, but I just wanted to
Gemma's doing a video. Gemma's doing a video on this.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
One thing though, Gemma mentioned Star-Lord. We had the Avengers 4 trailer that Gemma. We had the Avengers 4 trailer come out the other day, and Gemma has agreed. I think JR is going to join as well. We are going to do a non-live version edited podcast, and we're going to break down the trailer for Avengers 4 next week.
Yeah, I've only watched it about 4 million times.
Oh, just the tone of the trailer has me.
But we've had a week of trailers. I mean, we got the teaser, didn't we, for Game of Thrones? It didn't. I cannot see any theories that are relevant being formulated from that, but it was gorgeous, and it was lovely to have that little reminder that it is coming. So that was exciting, and it was beautifully done.
Piano Diva. Theon means God. That is true. It's in Greek, correct? Does Baratheon mean bastard god, bastard line of the line of Targs? Total speculation.
I mean, the etymologies of the words are there. I always thought it was interesting that Baratheon had the suffix Theon, and Theon obviously is called Theon. I've tried to find connections there, but there's not many connections between House Baratheon and House Greyjoy, except for the whole rebellion incident.
Biggie says, also another great comment, the Faith went after the Targaryens as soon as as Aegon died.
Exactly.
Balerion wasn't blasting fools with Visenya.
I think it was clear that Maegor was not, well, and Aenys as well. Aenys was just seen as weak, as an easy target, so that the wolves certainly circled, and then Maegor was just not really playing the game. I think we can safely say, in the same way that Aegon had.
Some other interesting things. Should we talk about Aegon Fort? Should we talk about that a little bit? Because that's kind of,
we can do. Yeah. I think we get this flurry of things that he did. And I think all of this is taking away from the fact that we're not exploring who he was, or who he kind of guy he was. You know, what did he do in his downtime? You know,
did he sit down by the fire and sip a nice arbor?
What was his favorite wine? You know, what did he do when he wasn't burning crap out of continents? And you know,
that is a huge statement, right? That says a lot about him, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Like the fact that is kind of the imagery that sticks in our mind about him.
That's all we know, isn't it? Really, we know a lot about his movements and what he did. Just still 4 chapters of Fire and Blood, and an entire sequence in the world of Ice and Fire, and we still don't know who this guy is.
Jeez.
Talk about the Aegon Fort if you want.
Anyways, we are going to open it up to the chat, and we'll take some questions. What time is it now? It's 7:50. I think we can go for another 15 minutes or so. It's getting a little bit late for Gemma. We said we were probably going to do about an hour tonight, and then there's more interesting chapters than this one, but we hadn't done a podcast for a while. We wanted to make sure we were hanging out with you guys. We missed you.
We got some information about the maesters, which was interesting.
Let's talk about that actually.
This line, here we go. Aegon Targaryen always kept a maester on Dragonstone, as his father and father's father had done before him. Now, I find this really interesting because obviously before Aegon, the Targaryens weren't rulers, or, they were essentially refugees.
Old Town and right? It's like,
why are generations and generations of Targaryens having maesters, which are very much a Westerosi thing? I don't think any maester conspiracy started until around the Dance of the Dragons, or immediately in the aftermath of the Dance of Dragons. Not really sure what to do with that information. I do find it very interesting, though.
I mean, the way that the Hightowers accepted, I mean, obviously they knew that Aegon had a dragon, and that's a big deal. But they are also the family that was the most closely tied to magic and whatnot. And look at their library. I mean, like the information that they have at their disposal. I don't know. I just thought it was so interesting how they just opened the gates and they were so happy about it. And
I think they weren't stupid.
I know, and I know they weren't stupid, but I don't know. I just got this weird vibe about the people, like the Hightower.
And it's certainly, like you said, the Hightowers are they're in Old Town, which is very closely connected with the Maesters. So maybe there was some, maybe not even the beginnings of a grand Maester conspiracy, but certainly somebody keeping tabs on what was going on at Dragonstone.
They had the Maesters for the tax break.
Yeah, it was during Aegon's rule that the office of Grand Maester was created as well. So that's another. The Grand Maester is basically the guy that is like Pycelle, who sits on the small council of the ruling monarch. And
so this for me was foreshadowing that, like, if Jon survives, it's going to happen with Samuel Tarly. I don't know. That's kind of how
sure, yeah,
or at least an allusion to it that it's possible.
And I do think it's hilarious because we've touched upon the fact that Grand Maesters, although to be fair, most of them are very old when they become Grand Maester because they kind of send the old ones. Grand Maesters have this pattern of all dying all the time. Like Maegor killed at least 2, maybe 3 of them, I believe. He certainly beheaded one of them with Blackfire. And there's this.
Maegor did nothing wrong. Come on, bro. That was insanity.
But this pattern of Grand Maesters dying begins immediately as soon as the title is created. Of Grand Maesters dying, sort of. I know that they serve for life and what have you, but yeah, that was quite funny.
See, Scott agrees with me. Scott agrees with me. He says, "Yeah, the high towers are shady."
It could well be, Michael Smith, that this is the really shady thing about Maesters, isn't it? We don't know what house they came from. The first Grand Maester was Grand Maester Gawain. We don't know what his last name was, so, I mean, maybe Aegon certainly had...
like, is Gildain a last name, first name? I mean, like,
Well, I think their first names, either they drop their last names, don't they? But Gawain, if Aegon had this relationship with the Starry Sept and Old Town, it's quite possible that they shoot in a Hightower Maester. Everyone hates the Hightowers.
the Hightowers are the homeschool kid. Turbo, I want to make Turbo a mod just for that comment. I don't know.
That's hilarious.
I don't know if that's smart or not, though. I like you, Turbo. Yeah, Gemma, kind of final thoughts in the chapter. Like, I don't know. It was really short.
It was short. I found the stuff about Monkey Face funny. I found the stuff about Visenya intriguing, and it's certainly there are pieces that I will kind of pull out for theories that kind of come about in later chapters, because, like I said, this book's not written chronologically. So as I go into a theory that's specific for chapter 4 or 5, perhaps I will be coming back to a lot of Visenya stuff. In particular, the theory regarding Aegon being infertile, and there's a lot in this chapter that can be picked out.
I'm in agreement with you. Pages 48 and 49, where they had, where Visenya assaulted Aegon, and they talked, about, her using Dark Sister and all of that. I thought that was the most interesting part of the chapter. Yeah. Other than that, obviously we get not enough on Aegon. We got propaganda on him. But
I think that was the point. I think it's abundantly clear that there are no real, or there is no real in-world understanding of who he was. So he's just been mythicized by people that wanted to ingratiate themselves with House Targaryen.
And George does this a lot.
Yeah.
He's trying to teach us something about this. So whatever we're taking away from it is really important. So I think that he's writing the way he's doing things for a very specific reason. And Gemma, obviously, is right on the money. I mean, it doesn't accurately portray what was, it makes it look a lot happier and more clean, squeaky clean than it actually is.
And ultimately, what it keeps coming back to is it's okay. Or Aegon was ordained by the gods. I mean, I'm not being funny, but we've heard this shit before, right?
Yeah, definitely. Overall, I didn't think it was a bad chapter. I didn't think it was great either. It was solid. I've enjoyed the book so far. I think I'd probably enjoy Winds of Winter more, but
I think we all would.
Let's not do that, because you know what? I'm gonna make the announcement, everyone. I've lost 15 pounds. Gemma's doing amazing. We're both healthy.
I'm a lady, I don't tell.
Yeah, we don't need to
lost,
tell.
yeah, a little.
But obviously, there's been many comments about how you look ravishing in the chat today, Gemma. Nobody's commented on my goddamn beard, but they'll comment about how nice your hair is. Whatever.
I'm glad everybody's appreciated my saltiness today. I'm not salty about the book. I love the book, and I love the fact that through this narrative, George R. R. Martin is forcing us to look deeper, and the text screams over and over again, bullshit, bullshit. Look closer. Read between the lines. Pick up. And it's ponderous. Yeah, and it actually makes the book, like I said before, a billion times more intriguing and interesting, because we're trying to sift out the rubbish and what can we actually take from this. So
making the connections,
yeah, I'm salty about Gildane being a Targaryen fanboy, but I'm not salty about the book. I love it, but he is a Targaryen fanboy.
So basically, I'm not completely done Fire and Blood yet. But overall, yeah, no, I'm enjoying it. Obviously would prefer the Winds of Winter, like I said. But the thing I'm doing the most, I think I'm finding when I'm experiencing Fire and Blood and I'm reading it, and I've listened to it on Audible too when I'm editing in the background or whatever, is that I'm just continually trying to find these parallels and tie it to the main A Song of Ice and Fire series. And
there's actually tons of that.
Tons.
So much of that. That there's even things that are hinting towards, if you accompany them with the pre-released sample chapters that we've had, it's like a double whammy. I mean, the talk about Krakens in particular from the last chapter 2, that was certainly an interesting nugget for Fire and Blood, but then accompany that with the Forsaken, and we have this double whammy. We have the letter from Daria Martell. Again, this is hinted at in Ariane in the Winds of Winter pre-released sample chapters. So it's not like these are isolated hints of foreshadowing.
Gemma is always on it. But I think that's going to do it for today, Gemma. What's coming up next for you? Everybody knows that I've been talking about this God's Eye theory forever. Really, really happy that I think this is the most happy I've ever been with releasing a video. I am so excited, and I've decided that I'm going to continue doing videos in this style.
You should be very proud. I really enjoyed that video. It was not just interesting, awesome content, but your editing game has upped several. You have leveled up in your editing for sure. Very, very professional.
Yeah, something. Yeah, that's weird. I'm not going to talk about that.
And your beard is beautiful too.
Your beard is weird. I thought you were going to say your beard is weird in reference.
No, I'm not doing Machine Gun Kelly.
So yeah, that's kind of what's up next. Next week, me and Gemma will be connecting for some sort of Avengers breakdown jig. Gemma, I don't know.
We need to talk Captain Marvel as well, so we could possibly, if Spider-Man Far From Home actually gets released, which I think it's already been released at the Comic-Con in Brazil, so we should be getting that soon. So we could potentially have 3 Marvel trailers to talk about. Captain Marvel, Avengers, Endgame, and then obviously Spider-Man Far From Home. So that will be very interesting if we could have all 3 to talk about. But we've had a week of trailers already, haven't we? It's been
the Thrones trailer. I'm going to be doing a video. And there's not a ton on it. I think there's a lot of stretching going on because we haven't had something in a while, but it is what it is. I'm going to take a look at that.
We haven't had anything in a while. What's this? 700 pages.
It's not much. I'm not. Yeah. But people keep on asking me to talk about it, and yeah, Fire and Blood still hot.
If they release,
I meant in relation with the show, Gemma.
If they release a proper trailer rather than a teaser, or can you remember for season 7 they did a post-production tease.
Yeah, with
but
the
that was great.
Yeah.
That was really good. I would be more than happy to do a breakdown of something like that. I will certainly mention the teaser in other videos, but I just don't think it warrants a whole video on its own. Everyone's seen it, right? They don't need me to tell them what they've seen. So
I know some people have said they haven't got notifications from my video. Yeah, I don't know.
YouTube's really weird about it's so sporadic. I don't understand. I always say, oh, make sure you hit the notification bell, blah, blah, blah. And I always think, is this
people
actually...
are telling me that they hit the notification bell and they still aren't being notified. I don't know what to tell you guys anymore. I always post in the community section. There's the community tabs, you can go home, videos, all that. I always post in the community section. I post it on Twitter. And if you follow me on Facebook, @AzorHigh, all that, I usually post them on the page. Yeah. So if you follow me on any social medias, that's where I do it.
I think we're very good, actually, at pre-warning people about a stream in advance. If you do follow us on Facebook or Twitter, I know Kyle's more prevalent on Twitter than I am, but I
actually suck at Twitter. I actually suck at Twitter.
I do. But generally, yeah, if you want advanced notifications, I think essentially don't rely on YouTube. Find us on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, and we'll usually tell you in advance, 3 or 4 days in advance, sometimes, Kyle.
Yeah, I got a really interesting video that I'm working on. I don't know if it'll be out next week. I'm taking more time with videos. I've learned a lesson to do that. There's going to be less theory videos, but they're going to be bigger, like the one I dropped today. Working on a Ragnarok video in relation to Samuel Tarly. I'm not going to say much more than that, but I think I'm gonna kind of continue on with this symbolism stuff I've been into. I've done. I actually, me and Gemma were talking about this when we make videos. Like, and you're done a video, like something will pop in your head and you'll be like, oh, I should have added this.
Every time. Every time. So, and then that thing that I remember, someone's going to pull me up on it in the comments. I'm like, damn it. I was going to say that.
Yes. If you haven't joined Geek Chat 1, go to Geek Chat 1 on Facebook.
I'm Gemma Stark on Facebook. You've got Azora High and a Hype rather. And I think
I'm Azor High. Thanks, Gemma.
But if you, Geek Chat 1 is the group on Facebook. And then if you find me through there, Gemma Stark, feel free to add me as a friend. If you don't look dodgy, I'll accept.
Yeah, I've had some, like, if you don't have any information, I'm not adding you. I'm not,
I could make a very lewd calendar from the pictures that I've been sent by people on Facebook. Let's just put it that way.
Guys, no dick pics. Anyways, we're not going to end with that. Thanks for joining us today. Me and Gemma had a blast. I believe, I don't know, are we doing something on your channel next week? And then we're doing the Joy to the Realm stream after that. Me and Gemma haven't talked about next week's stream yet. So
actually, I do have an idea. I actually have 4 theories.
Okay.
So I'm going to do a poll in Geek Chat 1 and on my Patreon, and I'll share the theories with you, Kyle, and you can do a poll too, and then we will collate the votes from those 3 platforms, and so you're going to decide. So you'll have to find us either on Patreon or Geek Chat 1 to find out what those topics are, but they are all very, very tasty.
Yes, very much. Go check out Gemma's channel. Go check out the new video I dropped today. And thanks for joining us. We really,
Sorry, I'm just laughing at Tubbs. I assume he's talking about dick pics. I only did that once, lol. You didn't. You never did.
All right, everyone. I think it's time to sign off.
I think so too.
Hype and love, everyone. Wow.
Bye.